So yesterday in our first session, I have given the foundation of the term Adhikara, that is someone who is fit for the higher life. The Adhikarin is produced by Adhikara Yoga. That aspect of yoga, the foundation of yoga, the Yama Niyama, that enables us to be fit for the higher life. This is such a vital element in our growth and development. And you know, when I look at the human growth and development when we are a baby, the maximum development of the brain, the nervous system, occurs in the first 2 years of our life. And that is why the first two limbs of Ashtanga Yoga seem to be so important for development of something higher in us. Because that higher consciousness needs a firm foundation. Are you all able to hear me? Okay, I'm just checking on the sound because someone I think has no sound, so it may be some other issue. What you can always do is log out and log back in. That most of the time solves most issues. You could see now maybe Jane, you could check it up again, whether it's working. I think maybe one of your sound. Okay. Just tell her, please log out and log back in and it may solve. This is what I have found is if you log out and log back in, usually it solves the issue. It's like with so many computer issues, you basically restart your computer, it seems to solve. And I wish we human beings had something like that. Huh? A restart button that just you have to hit reboot and everything's fine. But maybe that's what rebirths all our life. We don't know. Let's start off with the Guru Stotra. Tadparam paryaya vidmahe Jnanalingeshwaraya dhimahi tanno guruh prachodayate om. Om Yoga Maharshi Dr. Swami Geetananda Giri Guru Maharaj ki Jai. Fine. So today we are diving deep into the deep end straight away. We had a small shallow swim yesterday, a swim that gave us an idea of what is Adhikara and Adhikaran and other things like that. And today I'm going to go straight into the first of the Yama Niyama Ahimsa in detail. And before that, to put it in context, let's go to Maharishi Patanjali's very beautiful verse 28 in the second chapter. The second chapter, 28. You should be able to see a screen here. Can you see a screen? Okay. Yoganga Anushtanat Ashuddhik Shaye Jnana Dipti Aviveka Kyatehe. And this is where Maharishi Patanjali, he gives us the structure of why we have the yoga angas. Why do we have the limbs of yoga? And he makes it very clear that the limbs of yoga, the yoga anga, have a wider evolutionary perspective. And he says that these have to be lived, anushtanat. You are not just to study them, you have to live them. That is his very clear-cut message here. he tells us that Ashuddhi Kshaye, the impurities are dissolved, and Jnana Deepti, the higher inner luminosity can come on, and Aviveka Kyate, the highest discerning intellect manifests. That Viveka, which is so vital in our evolutionary growth. The Viveka is very, very important if we are to grow. And for that Viveka to manifest, Patanjali is very clear that we need to yoga anga. And these yoga angas are not just to be studied, they are to be lived. Yoga anga anushtanat. And by doing that, Ashuddhi Kshaye Jnana Deepti Aviveka Kyate. A very elevated reason why we should take on the practice, the life of the limbs of yoga. And right away in the very next verse, he gives us the foundation. What are these limbs? And as I said yesterday, we need to consider them as limbs rather than as steps, because when we understand them as limbs, we understand they are all interconnected. Your hands are connected to your head, is connected to the body, is connected to the feet, is connected to the kidney, is connected to the lungs, is connected to the liver. Everything is connected one to the other. And that is why it is so important that everything is connected to each other. So Maharishi Patanjali, he is telling us very clearly in unequivocal terms. Patanjali Maharishi tells us very, very clearly that these are limbs that are all interconnected. He could have chosen to use the word steps if he meant them to be steps. His very choice of the word as limb means that just as every part of your body is vital for your existence, each of these limbs is vital for your spiritual existence. He is very clear in his teachings. There's no confusion at all there. And that is why I had shared with you, and I will share again, a very beautiful image I had sent you by email today. For those who have not yet seen it, this is, to me, one of the very best depictions of the 8 limbs of yoga, the Ashtanga, by someone who runs a Bo Yoga. I thought it was B Yoga, but it's Bo, B-O, yoga.com. And I came upon this a couple of weeks ago. And I love the fact they, at the bottom of the image, say, you may share, print, or use this image for yoga education with reference. I said, that sounds like somebody I would like. And I sent the person an email congratulating them and appreciating them, and got a very beautiful email in response from them too. And I told them I'm going to be using this image more and more. And in case, if you haven't seen it before, this is a beautiful mandala. And this mandala, the yama, they have depicted as the outer reddish part. That is the yama. The niyama as the next round of petals, which are the yellowish ones. Then you have the inner asana petals. You have the pranayama. In the green is the pranayama. Then you have the pratyahara, the blue ones. You have the dharana, which is the dark blue. The dhyana, which is the purple. And samadhi basically is where it all comes together. And this is just such a beautiful depiction. In fact, I tell you, we always see it depicted as, you know, a tree with branches. We see it, you know, so many depictions. But here you start to get that feel that they're all interconnected, and each one of them is contributing to the bigger, wholesome picture of what yoga is. And that is why I liked the way this was set up. Now, the only thing I would criticize is the second line here, which says, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali written 400 CE. That I would definitely criticize, but that's not what I'm focusing on this for the sake of the artistic sensibility and the beautiful perspective that it brings to what these Ashta Angas are. And it's so beautiful because if any one of them is not there, the image cannot be there. I think that is a very beautiful metaphor that you get from this visual image, is each and every Anga is contributing to what the bigger picture is. And this is why I really appreciated this perspective. And the original actually is in proper order. I tried to put it on a slide, and so I cut and pasted the niyama here. And that is why you have asana and then pranayama here, because I have cut and pasted it a bit. The original PDF is actually in proper order. But just I wanted to give you this, everything in one slide. That's why that is there. Very beautiful depiction. And I think we need to start looking at it in different ways. And especially those who have the artistic sensibility, bring forth new images. This is what I like about Jnana Sundari and her drawings. They are amazing. Because, you know, you need to have the yogic understanding, and then it comes in these images. So just keeping that in mind and having put it in place, these 8 limbs, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And Patanjali in his verse says, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhaya, Ashtau Angani. Very beautifully he gives that concept. And it is so beautiful. And yes, Bernadette, the separated images, they look so different from the wholesome pictures. And the separated limbs cannot depict the wholesomeness of yoga. So true. I think it is so beautiful for us to have these visual metaphors. I like to think in visual metaphors, and this image brought out to me a visual metaphor. Now, when Patanjali talks about the Angas, immediately in the verse 30, he tells us, Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, Brahmacharya, Aparigraha, Yamaha. And he tells us these are the 5 Yama. And this statement is where the whole journey starts as far as the Ashta Anga are concerned. And what is the first of the Yama? Ahimsa. And this is why when we look at this, we need to realize a few concepts. And I'm going to read out a little bit here, and then we'll come into the bigger picture. When Patanjali talks about the Yama, they are often called moral restrictions. And he enumerates them as Ahimsa, normally known as non-violence. And I'm going to try to give you another perspective as we go on these words. Satya as truthfulness, Asteya, non-stealing, Brahmacharya, living in tune with one's creative impulses, and Aparigraha, non-covetedness. And why are the Yamas placed at the beginning? Because they are a practical means to achieve a control over the lower animal nature so that the higher human and humane nature can manifest. Now, these verses I wrote in my book nearly 10 years ago. And nowadays, I prefer to use the word subhuman nature rather than animal nature. I say subhuman and human rather than animal, because animals are just being themselves. Nothing wrong there at all. It is when we humans are animals that something is wrong. A lion being a lion is perfectly justified. Nothing wrong with it at all. A pig being a pig is beautiful. A deer being a deer is beautiful. A peacock being a peacock is beautiful. But a human being a pig is not beautiful, okay? A human being a tiger, a jackal, or a jackass is not beautiful for sure, okay? And I let something slip through there, yeah. Now, the Yama deal with controlling or mastering. Again, another word I like to use these days rather than control is master or transcend. Because the word control has so much of negativity in modern vocabulary. that we have to be careful. When we say you are controlling something, people take it negatively. So you are transcending and you are mastering the innate survival tendencies. What are these survival tendencies? The survival tendencies are tendencies that were very useful in our subhuman, pre-human animal incarnations. It was very useful to have the survival tendency when you were a toad. It was very useful to have that survival tendency when you were a rabbit, a rat, a mouse, a cockroach, a worm, a centipede, an amoeba in somebody's intestine. Very good to have a survival instinct at that stage of your evolution. But then as we have become human and we grow into our human and humane capabilities, that starts to become the very millstone around our neck that pulls us back and drowns us back in the primitive samskaras and vasanas that do not allow us to go forward and become what we can be. This is why it is so essential, very essential, that we need to work out of these primitive tendencies. You know, when we talk about these primitive tendencies, I wish to share something else from another file, which is that living file. Where is that? I thought I had it open. One second. Yeah. In the Living the Yama Niyama, which is the other PDF that you should have, if you come to page 11 of the Yama Niyama, we have the basic idea why all of this is happening to us. Yes. And this is where you get to see my beautiful cartoon. Yes. So when we talk about the Yama, we are talking about the capability, the capacity to consciously, mindfully say a big no to the lower tendencies, the subhuman tendencies. And this is within our own power. I have told earlier, the power of choice is the superpower of being human. What happens is this needs a lot of perseverance and people try to ignore it and justify through futile reasoning. And that is why Ammaji's statement, ignorance is the refusal to see, is so true here. Most so-called humans, or rather featherless bipeds, flat-nailed featherless bipeds, as Aristotle put it, they don't want to change. They don't want to really become human, as it is so much easier to be subhuman and live in the comfort of the old animal conditioning. Now what happens is that in order to understand why this is happening, we need to go back to our nervous system. In our brain, we have three complexes: the reptilian complex, the mammalian complex, and the human complex. There are three complexes that are part of our nervous system itself. And this is a very vital tool to understanding why the Yama Niyama are so essential on our journey. And without them, why we would struggle. What is this reptilian complex? Well, you know, your brain initially was the spinal cord. The spinal cord is the most primitive part of your brain, your nervous system. Then that spinal cord develops what is called the brain stem, then the internal structures of the brain, and then the external cortical structures of the brain come much later. So you have what are called the paleocortex, the neocortex. You have these type of terms in neurology. The primitive spinal cord and brain stem is where the primitive brain, the reptilian complex is. And this is carrying impulses and memories, cellular memory, from billions of years of human evolution. All those samskaras and vasanas, which are our primitive memories, are stored there, where people start to behave like reptiles, hissing at each other, and snapping. Yeah. You know, like the crocodiles, alligators snap at each other. Well, all of that, and like that anaconda coiling around and suffocating others. Well, all of that comes from back there, which is primitive neuronal responses, or rather reactivity. These are the old reflexes. And these reflexes are very vital for survival. They are vital to keep us alive. And the reptiles are cold-blooded. They have not developed a hypothalamus to regulate the body temperature. They react to the external stimuli, and the reactions are more reflexive, like the knee-jerk reaction. These are automatic reactions, and they are immediately displayed without any thought whatsoever. Now, if you just think about your own life, you're going to think of at least a couple of dozen people who are still caught in the reptilian complex, and people at work and people on the street and people at your own relatives who are still caught in reactivity. You tell me this, I tell it back to you. You are nice to me, I'm nice to you. You bite me, I bite you. And there is no sense of a higher consciousness dealing with it at that time. It is all about, I have to be right, I have to survive, and for that, you have to be put in your place. You have to be destroyed. That is the whole reptilian complex which is dealing with that. And this complex has a lot of violence associated with it. You know, normally when we talk about how the human being evolved, Neanderthal man and then Homo sapien and all this, actually, you know, it wasn't the wisest of the human beings who evolved. It was the violent ones. And actually, because survival depended on who could kill off the others. And that is why, as a race, violence is very deeply ingrained in us, whether we like it or not, because we got here this far by killing off the rest. And you think about how all these explorers, today is the 4th of July, all these explorers went to different places, and what did they do? They just killed off whoever was there. They killed off whoever was there so that they would survive and they would be the last man standing. Which is why I'm very skeptical about history. First of all, history is just his story, not her story. So you know that it's not going to be accurate, because you need to get her story before you get the accurate perspective. His perspective is never going to be totally accurate, right? So you need her story, not his story. But I am very skeptical about history, because history is written by the victors. So the people who could kill off everybody else wrote their version of history, and so that became history. Not the real version of history, but the version of those who are the last people standing, which means most probably the ones who could outkill the rest. So when we are talking about himsa and violence, it is not just that, oh, you are a very nice person, you will never kill anybody in your life, and so, oh, you are the embodiment of ahimsa. Nothing could be farther from the truth than that. And this is why ahimsa has been put by Patanjali right at the beginning, because if we do not confront our primitive violent tendencies, we are not going to be able to do anything else. We will never be able to do anything else. And that is why, yes, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is the reptilian brain. Eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth is the reptilian brain for sure. I have to get back at you is the reptilian brain. Coming to the next part, the mammalian cortex. This is the part that has become our brain stem. And the brain stem is basically, our limbic system, Brain stem is reptilian. The limbic system and all those internal structures of the brain, where there's a lot of emotions. Can you all see this file I'm sharing? Because I just saw that you cannot see the file. Okay, I'll just stop sharing and come back. 1 second, we'll get it done because I just realized. Let me know if you can see it now. Now it's come up. Thank you so much. Okay. So we were talking about the reptilian. We are now starting about the mammalian, and you can have a look at that. You have the notes anyway, but just to keep you up to track. The mammalian part is the remnant from our mammalian days and is shared with the mammalian brethren, those four-footed creatures, those mammals who also have a womb and give birth to babies and suckle them on the mammary gland and hence are called mammals. And we humans belong to that same group. Mammals are warm-blooded. They like to play around and have a lot of fun. Their reactions are more on emotions and fear. This is very much the limbic system, the amygdala, the hippocampus, the cingulate gyrus. This is where you have the emotions, the fear, and especially the predominant negative emotion, which is anger. It is very much the amygdala. And sexual rage. The sexual violence that you find is very much from the limbic system. The limbic system plays out a lot of the violent sexual issues that we have as a race. When we react based on our emotions, these are impulsive, and this is the part of the brain dominant at that moment in time. And when this is dominant, the cortical part shuts down. High level of emotion shuts down your cortical capacity, which means basically you cannot think straight when you are emotionally aroused. When you are emotionally aroused, you cannot think straight. And that is why unless you can control the emotions and deal with them, you will never be able to think clearly. Which is why the power of pranayama comes in, because pranayama enhances your cortical control over your emotional volatility. And it doesn't matter which pranayama you do. The moment you consciously start to say, I am going to breathe in the way I wish to breathe, your emotions are brought under control. Because as long as the reptilian part of you was governing it, the emotions were on a spree. There was no control. So if you want to deal with the reptilian and mammalian cortex, I tell you, pranayama ultimately is the key to this whole thing. Because the moment you consciously shift the power center from the brain stem to the prefrontal cortex, where you're making a choice how you want to breathe, you have changed the whole hierarchy. And this is just amazing what can happen. The other thing that can be very useful here, dealing with emotional volatility, is mantra japa. Japa, which is the repeated utterance of either a single or a few syllabled sound. So for example, it could be the Om, the Maha Mantra Om. It could be Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Sharavana Baba. So many different mantras could be used depending on person's culture. And I must tell you that beautiful research by Dr. Bernardi in Italy, who works with the University of Finland, has showed that Ave Maria, the chanting of the Ave Maria prayer, had the similar effect to the Buddhist chant Om Mani Padme Om. And they said the yogic mantra which they used was Om Mani Padme Om and the Ave Maria. They found that they had the similar effect on the heart rate variability, which tells how your nervous system is responding. So it doesn't matter what you choose, that which is culturally suitable to the individual. I would always say the mantra should be culturally suitable to the individual so that they can chant it, understanding the meaning, and they can chant it with feeling. Because here you are bringing in a positive emotion. You are replacing a negative emotion with a positive emotion of hope, surrender, and devotion. So the emotion is being replaced with devotion. That is actually what you are doing. And it is very, very beautiful. Chanting mantras have amazing effect on emotion volatility. Mantras And bhajans again, music and bhajans. You know, last night we had Ma Uma Shakti from Italy singing her heart out in Shambho Purare, Shankara Purare, Shuladara Parnidara, Shankara Purare. It was so beautiful. And I tell you, after that, there's no way, you know, you are going to feel sad or feel anything. You know, just such an emotional catharsis through music. Mantra japa is amazing. Mantras are very beautiful tools for this process to occur. We then come to the human complex. The human complex is the new kid on the block. And that is why it's still struggling, because it is only, you know, many, many thousands of years old compared to the millions of years that you have had the reptilian and mammalian. So the reptilian and mammalian have been around so long, they know all the shortcuts, they know all the tricks, they know how to get rid of the enemy. They're just so good at it. And now you have this poor little kid who's just come in like Spider-Man as a young teenager, not knowing how to be a superhero. That is what the human complex is like. That is why I like Spider-Man, because Spider-Man to me is like this human complex trying to deal with the mammalian and reptilians who have been around. These are the villains who have been around for a long time. It's actually amazing, actually. The human complex is mainly the neocortex, especially this frontal neocortex or prefrontal, which is very active in contemplative and meditative sessions. This is the area where you can actually start to contemplate something that is beyond your existence. You go beyond the need to survive at any cost. The transcendence of the survival instinct occurs in the prefrontal cortex. This is where you have that transcendence of their old primitive reptilian and mammalian tendencies, which are basically our samskaras and vasanas. The samskaras and vasanas are so deep, they are like that reptilian mammalian complex that are only interested in survival. You remember Patanjali tells us, the klesha abhinivesha, survival instinct, he says it runs on its own power. It has its own energy of survival, which is why it is very difficult. You know, often you put off the main and still a few lights are running, and that type of thing. You put off the main, you do everything and still something is running. You cannot get it off. Like the horror movies, you know, where they have got rid of the, you know, evil thing and still there's some life and suddenly a hand comes up through the floor. Abhinivesha klesha is like that. This Abhinivesha klesha is such a dangerous one because it is so deep. It is so deeply ingrained. And it is going to say, how am I going to take care of you? Which is why Patanjali tells us, even the wisest of people who should know better, even the wisest of the wise who should know better, fall trap to the Abhinivesha. And that is why the most wisest people, you put them in an elevator that gets stuck, and then you see suddenly the survival instinct and they are climbing over everybody else's shoulders to get out the moment the elevator window opens or something. Or people jumping off into the lifeboats of the Titanic. Yeah, you know, you're in the middle of the ocean, that lifeboat is not going to get you anyplace, but I have to save myself. I don't care what happens to anybody else. And these were the nicest people, the most beautiful people, the most educated people. And the moment survival instinct kicks in, wow, it's just astonishing what happens. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it's just amazing. Abhinivesha klesha. Swarasavahi vidusho api samarudaha, as Patanjali reminds us. So the human complex is the new kid on the block. And the new kid on the block, this poor little kid who just been given the superhero powers and doesn't know what to do with them, he is like, how do I deal with all of this? Because the others know how to deal with it. They are hiding behind things and shooting the arrows, and he doesn't know how to hide yet. He doesn't know how to deal with it yet. This is the problem as this human complex gets developed. And as you start to move more into this prefrontal cortex, you start to actually become more vulnerable in the outside external world. And I'm very sorry, this was not given out to you as a disclaimer and warning when you signed up for this course. But yeah, when you start to live the Yama Niyama, which is choice. When your superpower of choice comes alive and you start to move into the prefrontal cortex, you are going to become a bit more vulnerable, a bit more susceptible in the external world, which is a rat race, a dog eat dog world. And seriously, it is going to be so tough. You'll say, Dr. Ananda, why did you wake me up? You should have just let me sleep. Like they say, let sleeping dogs lie. And I say, you're not a dog, you're a human being, you are a potential divine soul. So I cannot help but wake you up. And actually, it is you who choose to wake up. Huh? The teacher is only the medium, the vehicle. The choice is always ours. Change has to come from within. It can never come from outside. So coming back to this, when we are working with the human complex or the human cortex, it gives us to travel up to the human brain, unlike in the reflexive system. You know, when you are down in your spinal cord, brainstem, it is happening very fast. Why is it happening very fast? It doesn't have to travel so far. But now when it has to travel to your prefrontal cortex, it has to travel more. It takes a little longer. And this taking a little longer is where the space starts to manifest. You remember Vairagya is the space? That is the space that Viktor Frankl talks about. The space between stimulus and response. In that space lies the power of choice, your superhero power of choice as a human being. And that is why when we start to use this, we have that extra millisecond that enables us to say, I am going to choose how I respond rather than react reflexively. And suddenly you are now responding in a reflective manner rather than in a reactionary, reflexive. You have to be careful with these two words. Reflective, responsive is up here. Reactionary, reflexive is down there. It's the reflex, the spinal cord reflex, reflexive. Up here is self-reflection. And that is where you start to contemplate and ask yourself question, am I right or wrong? The reptile is not asking, am I right or wrong? It says, do what you need to do to survive. The mammal is saying, do what you need to do to survive. But as a human being, you can ask, what is the choice I need to make? Even if I don't survive, what is the right choice to be made at this moment? That is what Yama Raja teaches Nachiketa. And this is where we start to respond decently as humans should. Humans should respond decently. This is because the neocortex has the ability to look at things with a bigger and wider perspective. And that is why we can say altitude defines your attitude. What is your spiritual altitude? Have you grown in spirit? The more you grow in spirit, the more your attitude becomes all-encompassing. You stop seeing the differences. You're not focused on the fact that somebody looks different than you, talks different than you, thinks different than you, has come from a different society or social background than you. You are not bothered about that. You are able to look at the oneness that is there. That is the human perspective that comes. You see that we are all one. But down at the spinal cord, it is, you look different than me, I better kill you so that I survive. That's the spinal cord. And we have become what my father would term a spinal cord jerk. We have become spinal cord jerks, knee-jerk reflex. And people are reacting. They are just thinking of everything as a life and death matter. You look different, I better get rid of you. That is so primitive, so primitive. The yama niyama are up here, not down at the other end of the nervous system. The yama niyama are at the peak of the evolutionary ladder. That is why you cannot teach a snake or a crocodile and alligator about yama niyama. It's not going to work. But a human being can try to do it. For a dog, the yama niyama make no sense, okay? At the level of the dog, it doesn't make a sense. Now, I know some of you have beautiful dogs. And those dogs, especially when they become domesticated, take on a lot of our human attributes, and in fact, often become so human that, it's tough to even call them dogs anymore. And I see Laurie smiling there because, we know what that is. And that is why I can never get uptight about doga, okay? Doga, which is dog yoga. I can never get uptight about it because, when you live with dogs and you have them at home, they are such amazing companions. Hmm? So, when the animals start to live with us humans, I think a little bit of things change a bit. So, don't take me wrongly there when I say that. But, a dog, being a bit violent, there's nothing wrong, okay? A cat catching a mouse, there's nothing wrong. The other day, Bukash caught a baby squirrel and he ate it. Now, I may say, oh, I don't like that. But, for Bukash, he's just being instinctive and doing what dogs do. And I may not like it. It may not be nice to my sensibilities. But I have to accept, yes, Bukash is just being Bukash. He's just being a dog. A cat is just being a cat. A sheep is just being a sheep. But when we human beings become sheeple, that is where the problem comes. Huh? And it's astonishing what has happened to us. This is why this human complex is where we start to use the neocortex, the new kid on the block. And it is high up both in location and in their attitudes and qualities. When we are at a lower altitude, we limit our vision. When you are in a mountain and you are climbing the mountain, at the base of the mountain, what you can see is very limited. You see, all the dirt, and you see the nonsense and people making noise and, things not looking so nice. Climb the mountain, by the time you get to the top, you have this panoramic perspective and everything is just so beautiful because you are now risen above all the small details and you are looking at the big picture. I tell you, the planet looks so amazing when you're up in space. This earth looks so amazing from space. You get down on ground level and seriously, what a mess we are. As a race, we have messed everything up. I still hope COVID-19 will be the catalyst for transformation. I still hope it. Because COVID-19 has just given us this beautiful opportunity to be a catalyst for transformation and start changing the perspective, develop this perspective towards the planet and towards each other. Yet, are we ready for it? Well, time will tell. History will judge us. As I said, it should be her story, not his story. His story, her story will be better, more humanistic. When we take up a higher position, when we literally move up, we begin to respond as we have gotten to see and understand the bigger picture. This is a step up transformation in human consciousness. The Yama Niyama are a step up transformation in human consciousness where you are making choices to evolve rather than to be your samskara and vasana pattern. You are saying, I have had enough of being my samskara and vasana pattern. I want to transcend them. I want something higher. And that is where you are making a step up transformation in human consciousness. It is a pity not many seem to have made it. Reaction limits our vision, whereas response expands it proportionally to our conscious growth. And that is why for me, when people say the stress response, I always say it's the stress reaction, because the moment response comes in, there's no stress. It's only relaxation response. Relaxation is a response. Stress is a reaction. It's not a response. But physiologists have got so used to calling it a response that nobody wants to change it. Let's come back to the top of that page, and you can see this beautiful cartoon I drew many years ago. And here in that cartoon, you have the reptilian and mammalian, and they are here, attack, attack. North American history, 4th of July. Yeah, this summarizes the whole thing there. The gun in hand and attack. And here's the human brain. And the human brain is where the question is coming. Should I fight or compromise? What should be my response? What is the right response? That is the questioning that comes here. But the problem is this part doesn't have the gun, right? And that is why you have to be more careful. The more you start to contemplate, you have to sometimes build shields around yourself. Force shields. You know what that force shield is? The pranic shield. Develop a beautiful pranamaya kosha that is so strong that the negativities cannot come through it. That is why pranayama is so important. Pranayama shifts the whole focus. It shifts the whole focus from the back of the brain to the top of the brain. You know, this back of the brain, reptilian, front of the brain, human. And you have shifted the focus the moment you have made a choice how you want to breathe. And everything changes. Everything changes. That is why in our Bhavana Shuddhi, we do me, 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 me. Remember that one? It's back here. And let's all do it together. Me, 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 me. And then this part, the, the. This is where we are shifting. We are saying, I know these exist and I'm going to shift. I am going to make a choice to shift from the me to the thee, which involves other people, the higher ability to see the bigger picture and bring others into your frame of consciousness. This is very limiting. This is saying only me, only my perspective, only people who look like me, talk like me, think like me, eat like me, dress like me. All of that is back here. Here it is like we are all one. We are all the same energy. We are all the same life force. We are the same prana. Nobody is different. We are all one and the same. Remember I said yesterday, the human genome is about 98% the same in all of us. The difference is so less. And yet we harp on the differences. This is where we have to change. Let's do that again. Me, 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 and then shift it. The, and then we say, all this is nonsense. Let's get rid of it. Go, 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 go. And we throw it all out. See, it is so easy to look at differences. I'll tell you that. Any idiot can look at differences. It is only the wise who can see the oneness. And that is why we need to realize, we need to move from seeing differences and start seeing the qualities that are oneness. This is very much a left and right brain perspective also. The left brain is very focused on differences. The right brain doesn't really see the differences. So there's a lot of change, which is why, you know, when you want to shift from seeing differences to the bigger picture, the left nostril breathing, the Chandra Nadi Pranayama is so useful, because what it does is it works on your right brain and you start to sort of see the bigger picture and you move from this, what are the differences? The left brain is always saying, oh, find the 10 differences. You know those games we used to play as kids, you have 2 pictures and what are the 10 differences? That's all your left brain. You should have pictures that say, find the 10 similarities. That would be the right brain. Find the 10 similarities in the two images. That will develop the right brain. But our whole society is based on find the differences. Look for the differences. Be aware of the differences. And it is harped so much in this left brain. No wonder we are stressed out. Stress is all this left brain looking at differences. Relaxation is the right brain that is looking at the commonalities. The moment you look at the commonalities, you are relaxed. Okay? So coming back. When we talk of the Yama Niyama, the Yama Niyama are based on a capacity to move from a state of differentiation to one where you can see the oneness. A stage of survival to a stage of living. Moving from just being alive to having a life. And that is why the first and foremost is ahimsa. Now, when we talk of ahimsa, it is very easy to say Okay, ahimsa is the negation of violence. And just before I go on to that, reticular activating system is a right brain tool. I would say reticular activating is more left brain actually, because it is more activating, and it is the one that actually keeps you awake. So it stresses you out. So anything that stresses you out, keeps you awake and pushes you is more left brain. Anything that is more relaxatory would be right brain. This is just many modern scientists don't like this concept, but I tell you, this is a beautiful concept if you want to understand humanity. And people, it's okay. Let them look at the small microscopic pictures. That is their business, not ours, right? Okay, coming back. It is very easy to say ahimsa. Himsa. It is interesting, it has him in that, not her. Okay. Anyway, ahimsa. Himsa. Seriously, I tell you, as someone said the other day, all wars have been started by men. Well, women have played a part, Helen of Troy and others, and Draupadi, but well, that's a minor part when you look at the bigger picture of, men always wanting to jump the gun. Huh? And that's something about the male hormone called testosterone. Now, as an aside, testosterone actually comes out of progesterone. Progesterone, which is the female hormone, is a precursor from which testosterone actually comes. And this is why I like to always tell my male friends that a man can never understand a woman because we only have testosterone, they have estrogen and progesterone. But a woman can understand a man because she has progesterone, which was the precursor of testosterone. And that is why a woman has more chances of understanding a man than a man of a woman. And that is a politically totally incorrect statement I just made. But at the same time, it is a good way to understand that we men have to appreciate the women in our life. Okay? That's just what I wanted to say. If we appreciate them, they'll be happy. If they're happy, I tell you for sure, we are going to be happy. Okay? And all of you married men, you already know that. If you're not yet married, please take that advice. It's going to help you for the rest of your life. Okay? Anyway, now that I've given my marriage counseling advice and got that through, let's get back to himsa. Himsa means violence. And I said violence is primarily our nature because we have survived as a race. Today, we human beings are here because of violence. We killed off everybody else, and so we are the last people standing. And this is astonishing when you think about it. It is not because we were intelligent. What did we use our intelligence for? To make better tools to kill each other. You look at the human evolution, we kept on making better tools to kill each other better, more effectively, more efficiently. And today, every country in the world, I don't think there are any exceptions. If there are, it would be nice to know them. Every country in the world, the highest budget allocation is for weapons. You would think we would change, huh? You would think we would change. Huh? And what are those weapons helping us to do with those nanogram coronavirus? Nothing. Zero, 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 zero. Tell that to all those guys who spent billions and trillions of dollars on weapons expecting an alien invasion. Because they have seen too many movies. And it's always the aliens, and the aliens always have to attack the USA and always the White House. It's just astonishing, all these movies, it has to be the same script. I don't know why they don't like to go to Egypt and enjoy the pyramids. If the aliens were to go to Egypt, they would enjoy the pyramids and they would have a happy time and there would be no wars. They've chosen the wrong place to land, okay? Go to Egypt, enjoy the Egyptian. Come to India, take a photo with the Taj Mahal. The alien and his girlfriend can take a nice romantic photo at the Taj Mahal. We'll serve them a hot cup of chai and they can go back and, we can have memorandums of understanding between Earth universities and alien universities. That is what all academics like to do. Keep on signing MOUs and MOUs and MOUs, and that's what we end up doing. It would be so much better. These guys have spent trillions of dollars. I tell you, the amount of money spent on weapons and newer versions of weapons and making it easier to kill each other. For what? Who are we killing? Humans killing human. But this is so deeply ingrained in us that I have to kill everybody else so I am left standing. You know, amongst the sports that are highest paid, boxing, by the amount of time spent in the ring, the boxers get paid the highest for the amount of time spent, I believe. Because we just love seeing people kill each other. Isn't it astonishing? Isn't it astonishing? Because this is so deeply ingrained in us. That is why, you know, when people say, oh, okay, the first yama is ahimsa, the second is satya. Okay, very nice. We have learned about it. Now let's go on to our stretching, beautiful asanas. No, you have not even touched what ahimsa is. Because the moment you start to touch ahimsa, why did Patanjali put ahimsa as the first of the yama? Because he wanted us right at the beginning to confront our lower nature, our primitive nature, and to confront the demons that are hiding within us. Our subconscious, unconscious tendencies that are based on the survival instinct, abhinivesha klesha. Without ahimsa, you cannot deal with abhinivesha. Because abhinivesha, which is the survival instinct, is based on violence. Because how will I survive if I'm not violent to you? If there are 20 people in the room and I want to survive, I have to make sure 19 of them are killed. Otherwise, I am not going to survive. So do not think, oh, this is just ahimsa, and yes, we have heard it is non-violentness, and I have studied it, and why is Dr. Ananda wasting so much time? He could go on to the next one. I know what ahimsa is. We don't know what ahimsa is, I tell you that much. Because we have not understood what violence is. We think that violence is when we go and kill somebody. You can be more violent with your words than your actions. And in fact, if you come to page, I think it is page 5, I give a very interesting phrase from one of our Tamil grand masters, cultural masters, called Thiruvalluvar, who gave us the Tirukkural, which has 1330 verses. 1330 verses in 130 chapters. Can you see my screen? Can you see something there? Yeah, fine. Okay, good. Thiruvalluvar, in his Tamil classic text, Tirukkural, he says, Yagava Rayanam Nakaka Kavakal Sogappa Sullirikapattu. He says, it doesn't matter who you are, you have to guard your tongue. Because your tongue will create mistakes and then you'll have misery. You know, my father used to talk about the Vishuddha Chakra, the throat center. And he said the Vishuddha gives you the power of speech and communication. He said Vishuddha gives you the power of speech, and he says it is the white elephant. It is the white elephant because a white elephant is basically something that you spend a lot of money but never gives you anything back. In a business that you're always making losses, it's called a white elephant. And in ancient times, when one king wanted to bankrupt another king, he would gift him a white elephant. Because the white elephant would keep on eating, but never do any work. And my father used to say, our speech is often like a white elephant, creating more problems for us than we need. Vishuddha Chakra, and the white elephant is the Vahana. And then he says another verse, 129, which are close to that. Theenat suttapun ullarum arade navinat suttavadu. He says the wound which was made by fire, it may heal, but a wound burnt in by the tongue will never heal. the power of hurting each other through our words. He is giving us a very, very important perspective on himsa here. Because we often think, oh, I haven't killed anyone and I'm very kind, so I am already good in ahimsa. We forget this. And that is why when we look at ahimsa, I like to say that ahimsa is a state of non-violentness. Now I want to give you a perspective here. Rather than ahimsa as the negation of violence, it is a state of being where even the consideration of violence doesn't arise in your mind. So it is not that you want to kill somebody and you tell yourself, I'm not going to kill them. That is a very kindergarten level of ahimsa. The university level of ahimsa is when even the thought of violence is not arising in you. And that is why I want you to start understanding these yama as not just the negation, because they start off as a negation, but then they have to grow into a state of being. So yama is a state of non-violentness. Himsa is the subhuman tendency to hurt and cause harm. We are often hurting others. This may take many forms. It may be mild, moderate, or severe. It includes the making fun of others that often hurts them emotionally and psychologically. Remember, hurting oneself is also himsa. Often what happens is that we think it is only about not hurting somebody else, but we are often hurting ourselves and we don't realize it. Being negative to yourself is often a form of violence against your own self. And we often do that in our self-depreciation. Remember Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna saying, Uddaret Atma Atmanam, lift the self by the self. Natmanam avasadaye, do not depreciate yourself. Do not be negative on yourself. Do not be violent to yourself. And when you start saying, I am no good, I am no good, I am no good, you are being violent to yourself. It is a form of himsa. That is why these yama niyama, they are multi-dimensional, multi-layered. And as you go through each layer, you start to say, oh my God. Blackmailing someone emotionally is also himsa. We often do that. I think one of the biggest tendencies with Indian parents is emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is one of the most predominant tendencies in Indian parents. And always, whatever the child does is brought out in an, you really want to see me dead. The kid just didn't do the homework, okay? And instead of saying, you're not doing your homework, it's like, you really want to see me dead. Emotional blackmail, Indian parent style. Everything has to be, you want to see me dead. It's astonishing, I tell you seriously. We are amazing at that. There are some good jokes on the internet about that. You can watch them. We have to be very careful. We are always emotionally blackmailing each other. And we don't realize it. It is a type of himsa. We think that causing external ghastly looking wounds alone is violence. We think that only hitting, kicking, pushing or killing people is violent. We don't even contemplate the hurt our words cause. The human tongue is the mightiest weapon, and the blows we feel through such harsh words may be stronger than the ones caused by swords. And then there's another one, the unsaid words and silence. Again, isn't this part of emotional reactivity that we all have in families? Unsaid words and silence hit harder than any of these. We never think of this because we say, yeah, I'm not killing anybody. I'm not going out and throwing stones at the cats and dogs, and so I am a non-violent person. We have to really take a strong, long and hard look at ourselves if we are to understand where this himsa lies in us. And that is why people are scared of it. I told you, people are scared to look at themselves. That is why the yama niyama, they are not even mentioned in most modern yoga teaching places. Or if they're mentioned, it's sort of, a small handout of one page that lists the 10 of them. And then they say, these are 10 that Patanjali said. You can look them up on the net so that I don't even have to talk about it. You know, I once was talking to a yoga teacher, an Indian yoga teacher. And you know, I'm harder on Indian yoga teachers than on Western yoga teachers, because as an Indian yoga teacher, the genetic structure of the thousands and thousands of years of Indian culture is in them. And that is why I hold them to a much, much stronger basis. And so it's a bit too much at times. It's sometimes I'm a bit tough on people for that, but that's part of my expectation, that when you have been blessed with this genetic, environmental, cultural learning, you have no excuses. But you know what? I was talking to this one teacher, and we were talking about the Yama Niyama, and he said, well, I never tried to work on them. I said, why? He said, I know that I can never be perfect in them, and so I don't want to waste my time and feel bad about it. I don't want to waste my time. I will never be perfect in them. So I just work on asana and pranayama. See, skipping the yama niyama and working on asana pranayama, as Swamiji would say, strengthens whatever you are. And that is why a devil practicing asana pranayama will become a better devil, not become an angel. Swamiji used to say, yoga, if it doesn't have the yama niyama, he said, yoga will make you better at whatever you are. And if the yama niyama are not there, you become a better devil. You become a better thief. You become a better abuser. You become a better, killer. Because what the asana and pranayama has done is given you the strength, given you the endurance, given you the capacity to be better at whatever you are. But you have not changed yourself. You have not transformed from the lower part of your consciousness, because you have not worked on the yama niyama. That is why the yama niyama are the adhikara yoga, because without yama niyama, we will be an asura, we will be a devil, we will be a demon, we will be an, the asuras in Indian culture, the devils, they actually did better penance than our rishis. Even now in our music circles in Indian music, when we talk about long practice and, not giving up and just practicing hard without a gap, we call it asura sadhana. Asura is a devil, a demon, a demonic practice. You are practicing like a devil. Because these asuras, these rakshasas, they had the capacity of doing it without letting go. Whereas the good guys often would give up. And this is one of the biggest struggles we have always had, that the negative ones seem to be able to do it. Really, they keep at it. And that is why the power of destruction is so strong. The power of negativity is so strong. Because it just keeps on like a drill. Like a drill. You remember I told you about the power of japa? Drop, 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 drop. And what happens? The water drills a hole in the stone. A drill is a japa. A drill is just going at the same place and drilling the hole. And what happens with the positivity? And the negativity is like, as they talk about the good and the bad wolf in the North American original Red Indians. Remember, they were called Indians, not because they were Indians, but because Christopher Columbus had no idea where he was going. Christopher Columbus, when he got back, was put in jail for the rest of his life. And usually, I would not say serves him right, but that is one time I say serves him right. But anyway, that traditional Red Indians of North America, they had that concept of the good wolf and the bad wolf. It's found in all cultures in different ways. And it is said, which one will win, the good or the bad? And the answer is, which one do you feed? How do you feed it? By paying attention to it. Because where you pay attention, the energy goes. Yato mana tata prana. Where the mind goes. Yato mana tata prana. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. And negativity, as we said yesterday, the mind is like Velcro for negativity and Teflon for positivity. It sort of just seems to really stick. And why? Because it has that power. And that is the biggest issue human history has suffered, is that the good have not been able to sustain repetition, regularity, and rhythm, as Ammaji loves to call it. Whereas the evil, they keep at it. And it is a very, very big conundrum we have. That is why violence is so much easier than non-violence. Violence is so much easier to non-violence. And that is why people choose violence, because it's so much easier, because people are just going to go for what is the easier one. I'll just look at a few questions here, because there are a few statements here. One is of mosquitoes. I'm going to talk about that in a few moments. And if ahimsa, yes. See, Lalita, the concept of this Matra Devo Bhava and all, it is brought into the Yama Niyama, but in an indirect way. And Patanjali has given us a lot of stuff indirectly. He has talked of the nadis, he's talked of the chakras, he's talked of so many concepts indirectly that one has to go deep into it. And it is very, very interesting here. I'll come to this in a few moments. And regarding mosquitoes, yes, Paula, this has always been an issue. A mosquito is biting you. Now, that is the mosquito's nature, to bite you. It is being a mosquito. But the issue comes in allowing it to bite you. What are you doing? You are allowing violence to happen to you. You are allowing that mosquito to possibly transmit malaria, dengue, chikungunya, all those infections, which then can kill you. And hence, allowing the mosquito to bite you is definitely a violent act. Because violence is not just what you do to others, but allowing others to be violent to you is also. And I'm going to come to that in a few moments when I come to the very beautiful concept that Patanjali gives us about this, which then leads us to Pratipaksha Bhavana. Now, you can say, okay, what can we do? The most non-violent method would be surround yourself with a mosquito net. Again, that is possible in certain places at certain times. What would be another option is put on some repellent cream so that the mosquito doesn't come close to you. Despite all of that, the mosquito still comes and is sitting on you. Now you are within your right to tell that mosquito, dear mosquito, despite my best efforts to have a decent relationship, you have decided to be violent to me. And I think you coming into my life and me coming into your life is for the purpose of you having a new incarnation. So have a new life and may you be a more evolved being in the next one rather than being a mosquito. And you say, Om Tat Sat. Yeah? I'm saying it in a very jovial way, but actually this is it, because it is not that I'm non-violent, I will not kill a mosquito. We have to understand there are times you are going to have to kill mosquitoes. Okay. It is like saying, oh, Arjuna was so violent, he killed the enemy. Arjuna was fulfilling his dharma as a Kshatriya, and at that moment, his actions were not an action of violence in the bigger picture. Now, in a limited perspective, yes, he was killing people. But then when you look at the bigger picture, he was not killing. And that is why Lord Krishna reminds him, he says, you think you are killing people, they are already dead. They are already dead. But you think you are killing them because of your ego. And it is actually where we start to realize we are vehicle and we are a nimitta. It is called nimitta bhava, which is an attitude that we are a tool, we are not the doer. And Patanjali warns us, he says, when the tool thinks it is the doer, that is called egoism, asmita. We are the tool, but we think we are the doer. We are the mind, which is only the tool for the pure consciousness to cognize, yet we think I am cognizing. That is where the issue comes. And my yoga research mentor, Madan Mohan sir, used to talk about this a lot. He used to say that with the mosquito, he used to say there are two ways. He says, he said, you idiot mosquito, I'm going to kill you, kill you, kill you, kill. Now that is definitely a lot of violence in that. Whereas, you are like, my dear mosquito, you have come to me and I am a vehicle for you to take on a new incarnation and let you have it. Hari Om Tat Sat Om Shanti. See, that the thing is that action is the same. What is the attitude with which the action is done? There's a big difference. What is the motive behind the action? I think here in violence, it's always going to be tough because we are always, as a human being, we are going to justify a lot of stuff. But what is the motive that is behind the act is very, very important. What is the attitude with which the act is done is very, very important. And I think this is so important. So important that we bring this into play, because otherwise we are going to really struggle. Rama Reddy sir, I love the fact that the Ashtanga Yoga is now your virtual background behind you. I see that lovely mandala behind you. Rama Reddy sir, really every time I meet you, you stun me with your amazing thoughts in this. And as Jnana Sundari says, yes, when we are killing that mosquito, can we wish for it to have a better incarnation? Can there be a sense of helping another being in the process? So it's not just because, what happens is often you find people sort of saying, especially to small kids, they say, be careful, you kill that mosquito. Usually it's not with mosquitoes, but if the small kid is, killing a small insect or something, usually it comes like that. And they try to stop that kid from killing it. And so they give this warped logic of karma. This is where people get such a wrong impression of karma. So they say, you kill that mosquito. So now the next lifetime, the mosquito will be born as a human being and you will be born as a mosquito. And that mosquito, this mosquito, which is going to be in a human form, will kill you, who will be in a mosquito form. And then what will happen? The next lifetime, you have become human, the mosquito has become a mosquito, and you and the mosquito are caught in this, you and the mosquito, human mosquito, human mosquito, human mosquito. I tell you seriously, what a warped karmic logic. Huh? But this is how they try to dissuade small kids from, being violent. That, it's going to come back and, you are going to be there. It's much bigger than that. Every action, and I'm going to scare you a bit more, not just action, every word, every thought we have, it takes multiple dimensional effect at the same time. Karma is not between you and the other person. Karma is multidimensional, and because it is multidimensional, you really have no idea where it is going. That ball you have thrown, you have no idea what's going to happen. And it can be so multidimensional that it changes so far that, well, you have no idea what you have set into motion. So this small idea of, you killing something killing you, it's very limited. Himsa. And Patanjali, he gives us a whole concept, and this is where Himsa becomes the starting point for a discussion on a very interesting concept that Patanjali gives us in verse 34 of the second pada. The verse 34 of the second pada is a key verse when you want to understand all of these tendencies. And Patanjali, I will see if I can find my screen and get to that. Yeah, okay. We are on verse 34, I said. Yeah, 34 is the Pratipaksha Bhavanam verse. And I think I went by it. Yeah. This is one of the most important verses. Can you all see my screen? No? Okay. So I'll just go back and see what's happening. 1 second. Okay. I think what has happened is I have many of my screens open, and that is why that is happening. Okay. I think now I should be able to do it. Let's share screen now. And okay. And now is something opening? Okay, fine. This verse, which is the 34th verse, is a verse that helps us understand all of these deviant patterns. And Patanjali gives a term for it. He calls it vitarka. This first word which you find, vitarka, here it's in Sanskrit, vitarka. Vitarka is the term here. A vitarka is a deviant. Now, what do I mean by a deviant? We are born human. We are expected to be human. Anything that deviates us from our purpose and responsibility of being human is a vitarka. I hope that definition will satisfy everyone. Because what is this deviating? When I say deviant, we need to understand what does that mean? What are we deviating from? We are deviating away from being a human being, which is what we must be. Okay, so Patanjali is very clear here. Anything that deviates you away from your being human and your evolutionary journey to becoming more humane and to manifesting your divinity. So what is the journey? From subhuman to human to humane to divine. That is the journey we are on. Subhuman to human to humane to divine. Now on that journey, anything that deviates us, prevents us, or pulls us away from our journey is called a vitarka. Now many times you find that certain words are used in different connotations in yoga and in all Indian systems. For example, we have the word kama. When we talk about kama, kama is often referred to as excessive desire. And this kama, which is excessive desire, is put under one of the 6 enemies of the spirit called the Shat Ripus. The 6 enemies that pull us apart. And I made a beautiful video of this with me in 6 pieces. And interestingly, that video triggered off a whole set of responses. I'll see if I can find it and share it with you. Shat Ripus, the 6 enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, which is excessive desire, excessive anger, infatuation, greed, delusion, and envy and jealousy. They are similar to the cardinal sins that Christianity talks about. The Shatripus are similar in some ways. So Kama is put as a Shatripu, as a enemy of the spirit, a ripu. A ripu means an enemy, R-I-P-U. It rips you apart. An enemy within that rips you into pieces. That's why I had myself in 6 pieces in that video. It was one of those filters which came up, and so I did it. And people thought I was doing self-promotion. The last thing Ananda does is self-promotion, okay? I do yoga promotion, not self-promotion, okay? Now, yes, for me, yoga is me, and okay. So maybe there is self there, okay? But anyway. Now that same karma, which is negatively portrayed as a Shatripu, is considered a legitimate aim of human life when we talk of the Chaturvida Purushartha, which are the 4 legitimate aims of life, which are dharma, to live your responsibly, you live your responsibility, your dharma. And when you live responsibly, in tune with your purpose, artha, material prosperity will come to you, it is legitimate. Kama, emotional prosperity and fulfillment will come to you, which is legitimate. And moksha, spiritual prosperity and fulfillment will come to you, which is legitimate. So artha, kama, moksha are legitimate aims of life to be fulfilled through living your dharma. So there karma takes on a positive meaning. And so you'll have a lot of these situations in Indian philosophy and psychology and yoga and Indian systems of medicine. So here we have the word vitarka mentioned as a deviant that deviates you away from your purposeful living as a human being. But Patanjali in the Samadhi Pada talks of the first level of Samadhi as Vitarka Samadhi. Savitarka Samadhi and Nirvitarka Samadhi as the Samadhi that you get by cognizing external objects, where your object of contemplation and cognition is externalized, it is called Vitarka. And there it is a type of Samadhi. So even in the same text of Maharishi Patanjali, the term Vitarka is used in 2 different meanings. So I'm just bringing it to your attention that we have to understand the context in which the word is used and not just the word alone. So here the word Vitarka means a deviant. What is it deviating us away from? From fulfilling our purpose as a human being. And Patanjali uses the example of himsa, violence, as one of the deviants. And this is where the takeoff point comes. He says, himsadaya, himsa adaya, which means violence, etc. The word adaya there means etc. or et al. So normally, you know, we talk about, we say blah, 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 etc. Or we say, you know, Bhavanani et al. In authorship of scientific papers. This adi or adaya here means et al. Or etc. So here he says vitarkas like violence, etc. Which means for each of the yama niyama, the opposite of the yama niyama is a vitarka. So vitarka is not only violence. Untruth is a vitarka for truth. Stealing is a vitarka for non-stealing. Grabbing is a covetedness is a vitarka for non-covetedness. Impurity is a vitarka for saucha. Discontent is a vitarka for contentment, which is santosha. So each of the yama niyama, there is a vitarka that is trying to pull you away from the yama niyama. So you want to follow the yama niyama because that is the path of dharma, that is the path of yoga. But there is a deviant trying to pull you off track, trying to push you off track, trying to mess up your efforts. And he says the first example he gives is of violence because ahimsa is the first of the yama. He says this violence can be krita, karita, anumodita. The English version, this is where that comes. The Sanskrit version, this is where krita, karita, anumodita. This is the part. Can you see me highlighting it a bit? Just so that you get an idea of what I'm talking about there. Krita, karita, anumodita. So what is this Krita Karita Anumodita? I may have done it down here also. You can see it here. Krita. So this Krita is a negativity that is done directly by us. So in the case of violence, it is where you are being directly violent. You are going and killing someone. Okay. So it is a type of violence that is direct violence. It is a negativity that is being directly done by you. So it is called Krita. So your negativity through thought, word, and deed. Then comes the next one called Karita, where you are the indirect cause for it to happen. So instead of me going and punching somebody in the nose, I instigate somebody else to go and punch that person in the nose. So I have not been violent. I am still sitting at home meditating, but I have enabled somebody else to be violent on my behalf, and I am the indirect cause. It is Karita. So the negativity may be done directly by us. It may be done indirectly through somebody else or something else. And then comes the last one, which we are all guilty of, which is called Anumodita, which is to allow that violence to occur and not stop it. And I tell you, we as a human race, we suffer this third one so much because we don't want to interfere. We don't want to be the one to, point out what's happening. And so what do? We turn a blind eye. Or the other, who cares? In India, we say, chalta hai, humko kya hai, chalta hai. It will be like that. Why should I get involved? Humko kya hai uspe? We take that, yanagenna. What can I do? I am not a big person to stop it. I am not the one to stop it. And what happens is we allow it to happen. So the negativity is, for example, violence. You could be the perpetrator of the violence. You could be the instigator of the violence, or you could be the person who is a passive witness who's allowing it to happen. With each of the vitarka, for each of the 5 yama and 5 niyama, we are going to have a vitarka, and all these 3 are going to be there. The moment you start to realize this, you start to realize the yama niyama are indeed each one a separate limb of yoga. And to say that the 5 yamas are one limb, each one is a limb, because seriously, the amount of effort it's going to take you for this is going to be much more than any asana or any pranayama, I tell you. Because you are going to have to look at yourself, you are going to have to look at your thoughts, you are going to have to look at your life, you are going to have to look at your wife, husband, whatever you are. And seriously, you are really going to have to take a tough look at yourself. And we humans don't like to do that. We want to know everything about everybody else. We want to know nothing about ourselves. That is why we have countless numbers of 24-hour TV channels screaming headline, 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 so that we can be deviated from ourselves. I tell you, the yama niyama are the biggest internal journey of self-introspection, because you have to really start laying yourself bare. You don't have to go out and tell the world about it. You have to tell yourself about it. You have to look at yourself and you have to say, seriously. I do not say it's going to be pleasant at all. In fact, I will be straight and say it's going to be unpleasant. And that is why it is tough, because people don't want it, because we have this image that we are so spiritual. We are so advanced. We are so elevated, because already we are a yoga teacher, right? We are yoga teacher, we are yoga therapist, we have yoga centers. We are already looked upon as a guru to so many people. So, we don't want to look at ourselves and say, well, I remember a beautiful story of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was actually an amazing human being. And I may not agree with everything that Gandhi did and said, but he is quite an example of someone who really took life seriously, and especially ahimsa and satya. He really took so seriously, and his whole life was a full time journey into Ahimsa and Satya. And Gandhiji is an amazing example of, I would say he was a bit too puritanical. I would say he was a bit too fundamentalist and fanatical about it. That is how I would look at it. But seriously, quite an example of someone who really went into the depth of two of the yamas, Ahimsa and Satya, for sure. But once it is said that a mother, along with a small kid, she came to Gandhi and she said, Gandhiji, Bapuji, as they would call him, Bapuji, not Gandhiji. Gandhiji was the external name. Bapuji was the affectionate name. Bapu means father. Bap in Hindi. Bapuji, my son eats too many sweets. My son is always eating sweets. This is not good for him. He is not listening to me. This is what every parent tells their teacher at the parent-teacher meeting. My child doesn't listen to me. Will you please tell them what to do? At Yoganjali, all the parents come to me. Sir, my child will listen to you. Please tell them blah, blah, blah. But don't tell them I told you. This is the usual parent-teacher interaction that happens. And now I find myself doing that with teachers. Please tell blah, blah, blah. So the world goes back around. The globe is surely wrong. So this mother, concerned mother, tells Gandhiji, Babuji, please tell my son not to eat sweets. And Gandhiji looks at her, looks at the boy and says, come back after a month. The woman doesn't understand, why is Gandhi saying, come back after a month? All I'm asking him is to tell my son not to eat sweets. But because it was Gandhiji and because, you don't argue with people like Gandhiji, it's like with Swamiji. You would never argue with Swamiji, okay? It was as simple as that. That thought doesn't even come into your consciousness when you are with Swamiji, okay? To argue with him, it doesn't really come into your consciousness. So, let alone doing it. So the woman says, thank you, Babuji, and goes back home. And after 1 month, comes back with a son. Meets Gandhiji, and Gandhiji says, hello, beta, my dear son. Sweets are not good for your teeth. Sweets are not good for your health. You should not eat so many sweets. You should listen to your mother. You should be a good boy and not eat so many sweets. Okay, beta? And the woman is totally stunned. She's like, Gandhiji, Babuji, you could have said this last month. You could have told my son this last month. Why did you have to make me wait 1 month to say this? And Gandhiji replies, 1 month ago, I was also eating a lot of sweets. And because I was eating so many sweets, it was not right on my part to tell that little boy not to eat sweets. Now just imagine someone who had such a thought process. That is why for me, someone like Gandhiji, we modern Indians, we have a lot of negativity towards Gandhi for various reasons. And so, there's a lot of negativity, which is why Gandhiji would not survive in modern India more than a few years, or rather a few months, if he were to come back, which is why these people should not come back. Christ coming back, Buddha coming back, Gandhi coming back, it's not a good idea. They would be, pushed off the brink too soon. We have become such a crude race of human beings that such teachers would not be tolerated anymore. But just to imagine someone who had that type of ability to look at himself. Now, when we look at the Vitarka, Patanjali says, these Vitarkas, these deviants, he says, where do they come? He says, they come from Lobha, Krodha, Moha, Purvaka. He says, they come from these Shatripus, the 6 enemies I was talking about. And he gives us an example, Lobha, which is greed, Krodha, which is rage. This is down in this paragraph, right down here. Greed, rage, and deluded infatuation or delusion, which is moha. He uses 3 of the 6. He says, Lobha Krodha, Moha, Purvaka. Now it doesn't mean only these three. When Patanjali is giving an example like this, it means all the 6 Shatripus have to be understood. So the deviants are coming into our consciousness because of the 6 enemies of the spirit, the Shatripus. And that is why the Shatripus, which are Kama, excessive desire, Krodha, rage, Lobha, greed, Moha, deluded infatuation. Nowadays I call it just delusional psychosis basically, which we all suffer these days. Mada, which is pride or that arrogant ego that thinks it knows it's all. And Matsarya, which is envy and jealousy. And he says, these are the deviants. Where do they come from? The deep subconscious, unconsciousness. And they come and they drive the deviant. The deviants are driven by them. And that is why I go to a very beautiful verse from Krishna. And as I said yesterday, if you want to understand the first 3 pada of the Yoga Sutra, use the Bhagavad Gita as a companion text. And for the 4th of the padas, use the Yoga Vashishta as the companion text. And you will really, really go deep. You will go so deep, you will be astounded. Krishna in verses 62 and 63 of chapter 2, he gives this very beautiful verse. He says, brooding on the objects of the senses, men or human beings, develop attachment to them. This is called Sangha. From attachment comes desire, which is Kama. And from unfulfilled desire, anger or rage, Krodha comes. From rage comes delusion, that is Moha. From delusion, the memory gets confused, Smriti Vibhrama. And from a loss of memory, the ruin of reason called Buddhi Nasho. Due to this, he perishes. It is basically the whole stress response is, or stress reaction is described in these 2 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. The whole stress response or stress reaction comes in totally from the first thing is you start to brood on the objects of the senses. He says, Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsa Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Samjayate Kamat Kamat Krodho Abhijayate Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat Smriti Vibhrama Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashati. Such an amazing pattern that Krishna gives us. That is where all of these are coming from. They are coming from the deep subconscious, unconscious tendency to get locked in the external. The deviants are the externalized one. They are pulling us away. The moment you try to follow the Yama Niyama, the deviants come in and they pull you away. They are empowered by the Shatripus. And that is why Krishna gives an answer to this. He actually, I don't think I have mentioned it here. It's in my stress book. In my stress book, I've talked about that next verse, where he says, you have to go beyond the raga and dvesha, which are the 2 kleshas of like and dislike, the 2 opposites, the dvandvas. Raga dvesha viyuktaistu, you have to go beyond the vishayan indriyas charan, and you stop getting attached to the sensory objects. Atma Vashye Vidayatma, the person who is self-satisfied, self-content. Prasada Madhigachati, has the clarity and overcomes the stress. Raga Dvesha Viyuktaistu Vishayan Indriyas Charan. Atma Vashye Vidayatma, Prasada Madhigachati. A very beautiful message is given there by Lord Krishna. So the Lobha, Moha and Krodha, where do they come from? Inside. We are always trying to find a scapegoat outside. We are always trying to find someone to blame. And the modern therapies are strengthening that by saying, yes, you can blame your parents, you can blame society, you can blame your teachers, you can blame the environment. Stop blaming anybody. Start looking inside yourself, because the answers lie within you. The answers do not lie outside. People may have been mean to you. People may have ruined your life. I do not deny it. People could have been very bad to you. People could have really been demons and devils in your life. But at the same time, the choice lies within you, not outside. The choice to be what you want to be, to respond the way you want to respond. The choice is yours. Viktor Frankl, what did he go through? That poor guy, that whole concentration camp experience in the Holocaust. And he comes out, he could have come out hating the Nazis. He could have come out hating humanity. He could have come out wanting to bomb the whole of, the world. And he comes out and says, the last and final freedom we have is to choose our attitude towards whatever happens to us. He was not blaming somebody. He was saying, you have the capacity to choose the attitude, and in that you transform yourself. And that is why one has to look at the Yama Niyama as not tools to be, liked by people in society. You may not be liked by people in society. That doesn't matter. What is important is that, are you growing? Now, I'm not saying you have to become a pain in the wrong place for people in your life. You don't have to become this pain, and I'm going to talk about that in the next session when we talk about Satya, because I know a lot of those beautiful pains, and they're just amazing, beautiful pains who go around making messes of everybody's life and trying to be truthful. And they are so violent in their truth. If your truth produces violence, if your truth has violence with it, it is not truth, I'll tell you that much. The truth cannot have violence with it. The truth cannot have violence with it. And violence cannot have truth with it. That is why they can never be justified violence. They can never be justified violence. One has to be very careful here, because you cannot take these and say, today I'll work on non-violence and tomorrow I'll work on truth. No, you cannot take them up. It's like your kidneys say, today I will work and tomorrow I'll take the day off. You don't exist then. If your heart says, I've been working so far, I need a week off. Your heart says, I need a week off. You have just had the off button switched on in you. Each system has to work in coordination, in collaboration, in union with each other. And that is why Patanjali tells us, these vitarkas may be mridu madhya adhimatra. They may be mild, they may be moderate, and they may be severe. So sometimes the deviants are very mild. Sometimes the deviants are very strong. Sometimes they overpower you. And he says, what do they bring? He says, they bring infinite suffering. Dukkha, ajnana, anantapala. The deviants bring you infinite suffering, infinite ignorant suffering. Dukkha, ajnana, anantapala. The deviants are never going to make you feel better. The deviants are never going to take you any place that is going to be pleasant or good or evolutionary. The deviants are going to pull you into infinite, ignorant suffering. Dukkha, ajnana, anantapala. Ananta, infinite. And he says that is why Pratipaksha Bhavanam has to be adopted. And if you ask me, what is the one most important thing in yogic living, I would say Pratipaksha Bhavanam. The capacity to adopt the contrary attitude. I'll tell you, life can give you anything it wants. People can be anything they want. If you can empower yourself, and yes, yoga therapy must empower the individual. If not, it is not yoga therapy, and I don't care what anybody says about that. Empowerment is the root of transformation. And I am getting ready for a session, hopefully soon, with two of my colleagues, and Matthew Taylor and Stefan. We are having a discussion of having a nice conversation together, trying to be politically correct on some of these things. It's going to be a good one. I'll let you all know when it comes. Pratipaksha Bhavanam is the capacity where you say, life has given me lemons, let's make lemonade. That is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Pratipaksha Bhavanam is when Whatever life throws up, you say, what is the attitude I need to adopt in this situation? And you use your superhero power of choice to take that attitude. What is guiding the attitude? The Yama Niyama. The Yama Niyama become our guidelines that enable us to choose the attitude, the beatitude towards whatever happens to us in life. Whatever is done to us by anyone, whatever happens. And you know, one thing that has struck me very strongly during the last few months is while the world is in turmoil, in chaos because of the COVID-19, there's a huge amount of suffering. There's a huge amount of suffering. There's a human amount of turmoil and pain, struggle. One thing which I have been pleasantly surprised is how many people in the yoga circle have actually understood that this is an opportunity for us to change and transform ourselves. It is amazing, actually. I would not have guessed it. If you had asked me last year how many people in the yoga world are capable of taking such an attitude, I'd have said a handful. But I've been very surprised to see that so many people in yoga have actually realized this is an opportunity for us to transform ourselves as a human race. We are not saying there's no suffering. We are not saying there's no struggle. We are not negating it. We acknowledge it. But at the same time, the bigger message is the message that we human beings have to transform ourselves. And this may just be the kick in the butt we needed from Mother Nature. This may just be the spanking we needed for us to take another look at what we have been doing, how we have been living, how we have been treating the planet, how we have been treating other people, how we have been treating the less privileged animals, the other forms of life on this planet. It is maybe an opportunity. It is still an opportunity, and I think this is very important for us to understand, because it is easy to say, and yes, I also get into those days because, you know, are you going to have a job? Are you going to be paid? My whole team did not get paid for a whole month because we were working from home and our authorities didn't consider we were working. We actually did more work from home than we would do in our office, and yet we didn't get paid. And it does hurt. And that people just want you to be physically present even if you don't work. It does hurt at times. So, you know, you go through those experiences. You know, your institution is not having students, you cannot admit students. Yes, these are struggles. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. And that is why Ammaji, very early in the COVID-19 itself, made the decision we would make sure that all our faculty members, our staff at the ashram, at Yoganjali, we would continue to pay them. We would make sure that none of them got anything less than they would get usually. And many of the people who were working at the ashram at that time during the lockdown, who really struggled to come, were given an extra bonus for coming. People who couldn't come were paid the salary. People who came additionally were given additional amount other than the salary. So we said we have to do our best to support them. And in those darkest times, people start to support you. And you start to realize if you do the right thing, there will always be somebody to support you. And again, it's very interesting that some of the people I would have thought would have benefited the most from my teachings during these times have been totally absent. People who I never knew have become totally present. And what a last 3-4 months it has become, where a whole change in our attitude, our perspective, I cannot tell you what it has done. So yes, there is suffering. Every day when I go to the hospital, we are worried, are we going to get infected? Because yes, nowadays you're looking at every other human being as a potential source of infection for you. Instead of saying hello, you are like, am I going to get infected by this person today? Imagine what has happened to us, the way we even relate with people. Yet at the same time, we have here this chance. What are we going to, how are we going to perceive it? And Pratipaksha Bhavanam is the key, because the moment the deviant comes up, the moment the deviant tendency comes out, what is so important is that you say, hello, Mr. or Mrs. or Miss Deviant, you are not welcome here. That is what Pratipaksha Bhavanam is. Very respectfully, you address the deviant thought, emotion that has arisen, and you say, hello, namaste, swagatam, thank you for visiting, but you are not welcome here. The door is that way. That is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Now it is very difficult, because we human beings are by nature sadomasochistic, voyeuristic creatures. So we want to know what's going to happen with that negative deviant. We want to know what's going to happen next. And so we keep letting it grow stronger and stronger and go deeper and deeper, and we lose ourselves. This is why the moment the deviant surfaces, you have to say, thank you very much at the door, at the gate. There's a beautiful theory. Nowadays, they don't talk about it because there's a controversy, but the gate theory of pain. And I used to love this gate theory of pain because in simplistic terms, you have a pain coming in from a part of the body, comes into the spinal cord, comes up to the brain, but the pain travels a bit slower than, say, pressure. So what happens if you start rubbing that place that you got injured? By rubbing it, the pressure sensation goes faster, gets into that spinal cord area, closes the gate, and the pain cannot go in. This is a very simplistic model, and Laurie may wonder, Dr. Ananda's dumbed this down so badly, it's worse than my dear loving Larry Payne's Yoga for Dummies. This is neurophysiology for dummies at the dumbest down level. But all I will say is, what happens is, before that pain can come in, the pressure has gone and closed the gate. That's why it is called GATE. You close the gate before the negativity can come in. A lot of controversy on that, so I'm not going to go into that. But what I wanted to tell what I wanted to tell here is that, just like that gate theory, when the negativity is coming in, you say, thank you for visiting, but I would rather have positivity come in at this time. And so maybe you can come later. It is a play. This is the play this part of you has to do, the human part of you has to do. And often I used to say, this is like you have a very dirty animal coming into your house. A very dirty animal coming into your house that is filled with the most horrendous dirt you can think of, stinking, dirty. Now, if you stop it at the gate, that is the best thing you can do. You can go clean it and all, but keep it outside the gate, okay? Now, if you just sit on your couch and watch it, it is going to come into your house, mess up your entrance, mess up your hallway, mess up your bedroom, jump on your bed, make your bed dirty, jump on your couch. And if you are just sitting there watching, before you know it, your whole house is going to be as dirty as possible by that dirty animal. What do we do when we see it? We stop it at the gate. Now, if you are kind, you're going to clean it and wash it and send it on its way. That's a different story. But what I'm saying is, you stop it at the gate. You don't allow that dirty animal to come in and make a mess of your house. These deviants, the Vitarkas, are worse than any dirty animal you can think of. Think of the dirtiest thing you can think in your mind and multiply it by 108, and you have how dirty those deviants are. And you are letting it come into your consciousness dirty your consciousness, spoil your consciousness, make a mess of everything. And then you are like, oh, poor me, what can I do? I am like this. You are not like that. You have allowed yourself to become like that. And that is where Pratipaksha Bhavanam is so much part of Adhikara Yoga. Pratipaksha Bhavanam is the key to Yama Niyama living. Because whenever the deviant comes, if you are not careful, you will be thrown off balance and the Yama Niyama go out. They are lost. The moment the deviant comes, now normally this is given in a very simplistic example. There's a very simplistic example given, and I think it is a struggle. It is a struggle because what happens is people start to say, if you hate somebody, think loving thoughts of them. Now, I was born in yoga. I was conceived in yoga. I was 9 months in yoga in my mother's womb doing Garbha Pindasana. I have grown up in yoga. I try my best to live yoga. I try to live these concepts. These are not concepts that I just talk about. I try to bring them into my life because otherwise they don't make sense to me. So they are like in every cell of my Panchakosha. Yet, there are people in my life, if you say, try to think loving thoughts of them, it is very tough. Okay? So it's very easy to get up on stage and say, think loving thoughts of all those people who you don't like. It's very easy. When you want to do it, it is a struggle, okay? And this is why people, then they say, oh my God, Dr. Ananda, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. And so, I'm not going to do it because it's impossible. Nobody can do it. Well, one thing is possible. You may not be able to think loving thoughts of them, but at least you can say to yourself, stop thinking of them. This you can do. That is also a Pratipaksha Bhavanam, and that is why even telling yourself, stop, is useful at those times. When these negativities are so strong, you may not be able to give a positivity. You may not be able to replace it with a positivity, but at least you can say, stop. And now when you want to say, stop, and you go, please stop, it's not going to work. Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Bhavana means an emotional attitude. The power of the emotion. Emotions are so powerful. You are using the emotional power in a constructive manner. And so it is not like, stop. It's, stop! That's what it is. They are doing that to me. They are doing this to me. My life is so bad. Stop! It is called the stop technique. There's a stop technique, which is very useful. This is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And I tell you seriously, whenever these negativities are coming, I do it a lot when I'm driving, because whenever I'm driving, I'm always worried about having an accident, because there are such amazing featherless bipeds running on the road of Pondicherry. So many of them, the first human incarnation are after being chickens. And chickens, they love to cross the road just as you are driving. Yeah, we have a lot of those, and they have a mobile phone in hand. Today I saw a guy, 3 people on a scooter coming the wrong direction with a mobile phone and talking on the phone. And I'm like, that takes the cake for the best ever possible. Oh my God. Anyway, I forgave him and I said, God bless him. May he be safe, because it's just pathetic. But what happens is the mind says, the subconscious, unconscious mind says, Ananda, what if you have an accident? What if I have an accident? Now, the problem is when it comes, what if I have an accident? If I say stop, it's done, it's finished. But what happens is my mind doesn't stop there. I told you, sadomasochistic voyeurism. It says, what type of accident will it be? Will it be a lorry? Will it be a scooter? Will I be thrown out the window of the car? If I fall on the road, will there be a lorry that runs over? Will it be my right hand, left hand, my head, or my left leg or right leg? Which hospital will I be taken to? Will the nurses be beautiful in that hospital? Who will come with flowers and chocolates to wish me well, and who will be happy secretly that I am in hospital? This is called the Chitta Vritti. Amma calls it Chitta Chatter. Huh? And what it does, it keeps on chattering away. That is why Swamiji called the Chitta Vrittis as, he said the Chitta Vrittis are the whirlpool of the subconscious, unconscious mind. Nobody describes, they say, the fluctuations of the mind stuff. And you're like, that sounds so nice, I need some more of it. Huh? The whirlpools of the subconscious, unconscious mind that drag you down to the bottom by your toenails before you can even say hello. That is what the Chitta Vrittis are. And what do? They amplify this, and you start thinking accident, 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 and you have it. That is why when people used to tell Swamiji, I couldn't come for class because I had an accident. He used to say, why did you have an accident? Swamiji, it was an accident. He said, why did you have the accident? It's tough because we are used to saying it was an accident and, blah, 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 nobody, blah, blah, blah. And he used to say, why was it there? Meaning that one has to go inside and understand what is it that is going on in us that is creating the environment. It is a very, very, and that is why when I'm driving, people who come with me, they always wonder what I'm doing. Because I'm driving along and suddenly I'm like, stop! And they're like, what happened? I'm like, nothing. Just practicing yoga. Huh? Pratipaksha Bhavanam in action. Huh? See, the Yama Niyama are an every moment practice. And every moment you are being given an option. Are you going to be a victim of the deviant vitarka? Or are you going to stay in line of the Yama Niyama by using the tool of Pratipaksha Bhavanam? That is why Pratipaksha Bhavanam, and I was so happy that Lori talked about it during our webinar. Because Pratipaksha Bhavanam is, I think, the key to Adhikara Yoga. Because it's easy to talk about the Yama Niyama, but then when it comes to day-to-day living, how can you practice it? And that is why Patanjali immediately has given us the tool of Pratipaksha Bhavanam. Patanjali put the tool there so that we would have the tool kit to set right whenever our vehicle was faulty. Whenever the wheels were not aligned, realigning the wheels. That is what Pratipaksha Bhavanam. You can consider, we take our car in for wheel realignment. Every now and then we realign our wheels of the cars. Pratipaksha Bhavanam is the realigning of our spiritual wheels, the wheels of our spiritual life, which are the Yama Niyama. That just came out of me. It's a beautiful thing, so please note it down. I never know what will come out of me because it's not me. That's why I love my classes, because I'm just like, seriously, what's coming out of you is just nice, Ananda. Where does it come from? And I'm like, I had no idea I was going to say this. That is the beauty of these teachings. The Yama Niyama are our spiritual wheels. They are the guidelines. And you need to realign them. What is throwing them off balance? The vitarkas. How do you deal with the vitarka? Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And Pratipaksha Bhavanam to me, and I'll continue this in the next session a little bit, because Pratipaksha Bhavanam is not just about thoughts. It's about actions also. It's about words also. And when you can start replacing negative experiences with people, places, events, with contrary experiences, you actually are also practicing Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And whenever I've had a negative experience someplace, I try to go back to that place and have a positive experience. And for me, it then enables me to have a sense of freedom. I develop a sense of freedom from that. Otherwise, you get caught in that, oh, that bad experience happened, that bad experience happened, that bad experience happened. So going back there, replacing a negative experience, a deviant experience with an experience of an evolutionary nature. Now, I don't want to get into this modern pop psychology of positive thinking, positive thinking. No, it's not about that. Do not think it's that. It's not about being positive all the time. There are a lot of times that you have to work with the negativities. People try to escape the negativities. Pratipaksha Bhavanam is understanding the negativity, understanding the cause of the negativity, and dealing with it in a constructive way where you use the negative experience to grow in a positive evolutionary manner. So it is not just looking at positivity. People have got into this thing that everything should be positive, everything should be positive. If everything is positive, you are going to be an anxiety neurosis patient because it's just too much of that. Too much of negativity, it goes into the depressive aspect. You don't want the extremes, okay? It has to be balanced. This morning, I have given a nice talk on that as balance, about the right and the left and the balance needed between anxiety and depression. And it actually came out very nice. I've shared it a bit more than usual because you never know what will come out. You never know what will come out on what day. Tomorrow is my 99th session, non-stop online session during lockdown. And it's going to be talking a bit about Swamiji tomorrow and some of my experiences with him at 7:30 in the morning. And in fact, you know what? This very session we have been having now has been happening during the auspicious time of Guru Purnima. It started in India this midday and goes till midday tomorrow. So this whole session, this whole 2 hours plus, has been happening at a time that is auspicious for the Guru spirit. It is called Guru Purnima, which is just amazing. Guru Purnima energy. In 1907, Swamiji was born on this very day, a full moon, which is called the Guru Purnima. It is where the energy of the masters is coming through. Swamiji was born on a full moon. He left the body also on a full moon. Quite an amazing life history that way. I'll talk about it a bit tomorrow. So to be able to share with all of you in this platform where we are all coming together at one place at one time, it's just magic. As Amma says, modern technology is magic. To be in one place at one time for one purpose. Just so beautiful, so beautiful. I tell you, nothing can make me happier than being with people who share my love for yoga, who are trying to live a life of yoga. And remember, none of us are perfect. I am not perfect, so I don't expect you to be perfect. I have a lot of imperfections to work on. And the good part is that we know that because they are there, we are a work in progress. We are all a work in progress towards perfection. We are all perfection in progress. That's a nice title you can give yourself on your visiting card. Perfection in progress. I think that's a nice title, right? You can also say you are a yogi in progress. I don't like this thing where we call ourselves yogis, because for me, yogi is such an exalted word. But I would say, yes, we are all potentially yogis in progress. Potential yogis is another good term. Potential yogis, a yogi in progress. We are Kaivalya in progress. That's another way to look at it. So with those thoughts, thanking all of you for making this possible, because if you didn't sign up for this, it would be tough for me to do it. And so you are my teacher in that way, because you, by being where you are, that is right here, right now, enable me to be a channel for whatever comes through me. In the process, I learn so much. It's just such a symbiotic relationship. In yoga, the teacher-student relationship is a symbiotic relationship. Don't ever let it be a parasitic one. It's always symbiotic. It's always symbiotic. May you all be blessed. May the spirit of the gurus be with you, guide all of us. And we are truly blessed to be in this path of yoga. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful time and see you all next Thursday, where we continue this journey, a never ending journey. Bye for now.